Welcome to More Action, the podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals. I'm your host, Sheley Brien, and together we have candid conversations with industry leaders to uncover valuable wisdom and lessons learned. My hope is you use these lessons to intentionally take more action in business and life. I hope you share and enjoy. Great to have you back here on the show. Today with More Action, I have something that actually hit me last year, kind of Q4. And today's episode is coming from actually another podcast. You know that I'm very selective in who I listen to. So this is like a dropped hint. If you want to see what other podcasts I listen to, definitely jump over to my website. I give you lots of tools, lots of hints on things that have definitely helped me take more action in my personal and professional growth. But before we dive into the episode, I seriously cannot thank you all enough for the incredible reviews that we have gotten on the podcast. The team and I literally, it like fills us up so much. So when you take those 2 seconds to drop a 5-star review, write a sentence or two, please know, like, not only are you helping it change the life for someone else, because reviews are huge and mean so much, but they mean so much to us. You know, entrepreneurship, podcasting, it can be very lonely. And when you hear and read some reviews, it's like the best thing in the world, which will tie into today's episode. But I want to call out this one. This is from G. Ciento, and it says, "Love this podcast. Sheley is so authentic and real. I love hearing about all of her experiences and listening to all of her amazing guests. This podcast is a must listen for anyone in business looking to level up." G, you're incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And dang, that just makes us feel good. So let me actually dive in right now into today's episode, and you'll see where this is all going to make sense, right? I just said this feels good. So let me bring you back. Q4 last year, I was actually driving to a holiday event that someone was having, a business that we do business with in commercial construction. And they were having a holiday event. I was going by myself. It was about a 50-minute drive for me. And I'll always pop on a podcast because I feel like drive time is the best time to leverage the opportunity to expand your mind. So I was listening to Modern Wisdom. This podcast, I forget how I came across it, but I think it was like this to that to finally found it. And this is with Chris Williamson. And I know I picked this episode for one specific reason. And this was like a blurb they said. And this was from Curie, who Sean is another host. He's a co-host with Sam Parr on My First Million. That's one of my favorite podcasts. But so Sean was being interviewed by Chris. Okay, backstory just to kind of show you how I got there. But they were talking about all kinds of different things, definitely mindset, business growth episode, kind of the share of the two of them sharing, going back and forth. And Chris said real quick in a sentence, he goes, you know, oftentimes I'm always trying to see who I'm spending time with. Is it dopamine, serotonin, or cortisol? And I was like, oh, that is freaking good, because it's like we can always be going towards these huge aspirations, these huge goals that we want to go to. And in that, there's all kinds of feelings and experiences that come up. I already talked about like feel good already. I talked about, getting more reviews. That's like dopamine, right? And also loneliness, a little bit of cortisol. So I already, in my intro, just shared kind of 3, just in conversations, ways that I am experiencing these hormones on a daily basis. And I know you are too. If you are building your career and or building a business, if you are managing your family or leading a team, I'm telling you, not only are you going through this, everyone else is too. And so when that question, when Chris like asked that question to himself, it made me start thinking about it, being like, well, dang, who am I spending time with? Right? You spend the most time with yourself, but which part of it? And so just to kind of, I want to set this up real quick. This is going to be like, I'm going to kind of give you some background, and then I'm going to give you some action steps. And then of course, kind of challenge you a little bit. I mean, that's what we're doing here on More Action, because that's what it takes to get to the next level where you want to be, where your success is. So just to kind of bring you back. So dopamine, serotonin, and cortisol, these are all neurotransmitters in your brain. Dopamine, serotonin, called like the happy hormones that you hear a lot of. Cortisol, you think like, oh, negative stress, all these different things. But there is more behind it. There is way more behind these. And a lot of people, I've done episodes on, dopamine hits. I've succumbed to the dopamine hits of my checklist, and how I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to put stuff on my list to check it off because then I feel good and it creates more motivation. But I was checking off the wrong things that moved the needle in my business, right? So dopamine is all about wins. You feel good, you want more. It's going to bring on more motivation because you're getting quick hits of a reward. Okay. Now, serotonin, on the other hand, still referred to commonly as like happy hormones. And serotonin is more associated with feelings of calm, zen. You feel composed, you're relaxed, you're at peace, you're content. You think about like long-term happiness, really great focus. And both of these, and first, you know what? I'm going to just throw like a little disclaimer in there. In no way am I medically trained in hormones or what have you. That being said, like I live these, so I am sharing my experience with you. So if any of this kind of strikes a chord with you, I highly recommend going out, finding those that are professionals in this matter that can maybe get deeper. And I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of this show. But back to it. So dopamine, serotonin are those like happy hormones. Like they, can make you feel good. Cortisol is kind of like the redheaded stepchild, right? And it's stress, and that can cause, depression, anxiety. All of these things are absolutely tied to your health. Where's your clarity? Where's your focus? How are you sleeping? How is your gut, your motivation, your overall feeling of like, oh gosh, what is it? Like just content, happiness. And all of these different hormones are so important for us to experience. So in no way should you not experience cortisol, or you not experience the dopamine hits, or only experience serotonin. Like that should never happen either. And I say like, that's like a very definitive thing that should never happen. But the thing is, and if you look back to that first question that Chris posed to himself, is like, who am I spending time with? And I can tell you over the years, there's been different times, different seasons where I'm definitely in that like dopamine hit season, but I'm not very at peace because I was chasing the next dopamine hit. The other side of it is living in scarcity and or abundance. And I know those are like cliche buzzwords that I honestly get used so much. But for me, and I'll share this, like Chris and I, we've literally, when we got married so young, we had nothing, literally nothing. Everything that we've built, we have done together ourselves. Now, while that feels amazing, the other side of it is that there was always a lot of scarcity around me. Chris is the other way. So we're a good balance for each other. But I was like, oh my gosh, what is? I'm always looking, how can we reduce our risk? How can we, make sure to protect what we have? And that can cause a lot of stress and anxiety. And for me, I know there's been periods that I've worked with a naturopath because based upon how my body was reacting, how I was feeling in my day-to-day activity, it was absolutely showing signs of an excess of cortisol in my system. And so I worked with a professional, just like I recommended earlier, to get an understanding of what is going on. That's kind of like the first stage, but then you got to look inward. That's that kind of hard, ugly part that you just don't want to do. And understanding who you spent time with. I know now I am in a much better place. I don't spend much time with cortisol. Do I experience stress and anxiety and depression? I mean, closing the restaurant, that was a huge depression era for me. All of those things are just experiences from you to learn from. And as you get more reflection, as you get more experience, as you become aware, you can now decide who you want to spend time with. So I don't spend much time in that scarcity mode. Does it still come up? Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. But I can see where it is, and then I can see proof and be able to transition away from kind of that scarcity, stressful area, knowing that we are good, we are safe, we are in control of what we can control to be able to take our business and our family forward. So a lot of these like affect your mood, your overall motivation. They can also affect things like sleep, appetite, metabolism, your gut mobility, all of these different things. So it's not always as simple, you guys. It is not as simple as like, oh, take a pill, take like this like supplement and you'll be good to go. I'm here to tell you, you got to take the action of like reflecting inwards. So here are some ways I want to provide you with some actionable things that you can do to increase your dopamine and your serotonin naturally and decrease your cortisol, right? You definitely do not, it is not a safe place to be. And I actually encourage you learning more about this. YouTube is great. Reading publications like on Cleveland Clinic, PubMed, read these things. This is what I do. I want to understand. So I'm an understander. I will research these. Do I spend hours? Absolutely not. But if I'm like, like I want to really understand this calm and peaceness of serotonin, how can I get that more? Let me understand even when I'm going through it. So I encourage you to do more research. And I hope this episode today is just kind of sparking that desire to learn a little bit more, because I'm telling you right now, your health, your wellness, this podcast has changed, right? We are not just all health. We weren't all health before, but we're not all just like health and business. But I'm telling you, your health, your well-being is literally the one thing that's holding you back from the next place in your business. Anyone, I dare you to go out there and find the very most successful people and show me. I bet you they have a strict protocol on their health. And that includes, what they're doing with their mind. That also includes their body, nutrition, all of the above. So let me give you a few things on how to increase it naturally to kind of spark that interest that you can start taking action today. So the first one is your diet. I'm always going to talk about diet. And diet, I mean like the foods that you eat, not the restriction of food in like I'm doing the no carb diet or keto diet or intermittent fasting. I'm saying your diet of food. Eat foods that are high in tryptophan with carbohydrates. Yes, I said carbohydrates. Eat those. So that would be like a turkey sandwich with whole wheat bread, right? Or salmon with rice. Have that tryptophan, but have the carbohydrates paired with it. The other thing that I literally cannot scream from the rooftops enough is make sure that you are eating enough protein throughout the day. I will, before any important meeting, like with our construction company, any job site walk, anything that, if I'm going to do an incredible podcast interview with a guest or even solo like this, I always make sure that I'm not thinking about food or I'm hungry or I feel depleted. Protein is my first go-to, and I cannot shout that from the rooftops enough. There is enough research out there to support that. Exercise. Now, exercise has so many different meanings, but I'm telling you, just freaking move throughout your day. If you're sitting on a computer from sunup to sundown, that is not going to help you be productive and help you settle in more of that dopamine and serotonin and reduce your stress. Movement is one of the best ways that you can reduce your stress. Now, I'm a big proponent of exercise because that puts me at peace. That definitely, it's transitioned from the dopamine hit of checking the box to exercise actually increases, I feel it increases my serotonin levels so that I am more at peace and centered and grounded. The other thing is natural bright light. So again, if you're in an office all day, go for a walk, go for a 5-minute walk, get out first thing in the morning, sit by a window and have your coffee in the morning. Get that bright, natural light on your eyes, in your brain. That's absolutely going to help you increase your serotonin and your dopamine. Now, one that doesn't get talked about probably enough is sleep. We cannot run on empty. That means both nutrition, that means like sleep too. So if you are burning the midnight oil, I encourage you, find those times when you can catch up. And if you can get on a regulated sleep cycle, that is probably the best thing that you can do. Chris and I actually just did an episode, and he one of his best learnings, I didn't even know he was going to say it. He's like, it can always be handled on Monday. It can always be handled on Monday. You don't have to stress over the weekend. You don't have to go through a cortisol rich weekend of stressing about something that came up, because I know you're the business owner and the only one to handle it at the moment, right? And you can, defer it off to your team, defer it off to Monday. So get your sleep. One other thing that's been really important to me, and this is with my faith, is when I find that I am stressing and worrying, I give it to God. So prayer has been something that has literally transformed. I feel it, the prayer lift it off my shoulders. And it does me no good sitting there and worrying about it. I'm going to give it to God. I'm going to take the necessary action going forward and have the faith that He is going to deliver. You can also look at this as meditation, that quiet time. Give yourself a moment to get quiet and escape or step away from those daily stressors that are, bogging your mind down. Give your mind a break. Now, I have two more for you. I have a lot. I thought this was going to be a short episode. It's short, but there's a lot in here. One of the last two is understand and define your success. This comes back a lot to peace, a lot to serotonin, and even the dopamine, because we can get bombarded on what success looks like for everybody else. I am over that. And I don't know if it's the gray hair, the fact that I'm 44 now, all of the things, is that my success looks very different than everyone else's. And there were periods in time that I can tell you that Chris and I both looked at success and defined success based upon what others said or did. And that is a really tough place to be in, because it never feels good. You cannot be at peace. So define your success, own your success, and make sure that you are taking actions daily that will get you to your success. This is one that you might have to spend a little bit more time on to really get down to what it is. And guess what? It might change over time, and that's okay. But make sure that, is it a semi-annual check-in? Is this still my success? Did you have a life event, right? Did you get married? Did you have kids? Did you sell a business? Your success will change. Your idea of success and the definition of your success will change. Make sure you check back with it based upon the seasons in your life, because that will absolutely coincide with all of the actions that you're taking and the things that you're doing daily, which will, again, affect your dopamine, serotonin, and your cortisol. Okay, and now the last one that I am going to leave you with, this is where it all comes down to, is who are you spending time with? If you looked at cortisol, dopamine, and serotonin as three separate people, they're all within you. Who are you spending the most time with? And is that the person that you want to be spending more time with? Or would you rather get to know someone else? If you found value in this, share it out. Share it out. I think this one can help so many people. And right now, this podcast, the great thing about it is all social driven. And I love that, because you guys sharing out the word is like social proof in itself. So thank you so much for that. If you wanted more on like the visual side, I get pretty animated. Make sure you hop over to YouTube. And actually, I'm having a lot of fun with the shorts over there too. So it's kind of like just more valuable tidbits than come on social media. So I invite you to join me over there and subscribe. And we will see you next time on More Action.